There's also a problem about the word crisis. Which one do we have in mind? There are numerous very severe crises. Many of them will be under discussion here in a couple of weeks at the United Nations and their conference on the world financial and economic crisis. And these crises are interwoven in very complex ways which make it, which preclude any sharp separation. But again, I'll pretend otherwise for simplicity. Well, one way to enter this morass was helpfully provided by a current issue of the New York Review, dated yesterday. The front cover headline reads, "How to Deal with the Crisis." It features a symposium of specialists. That's worth reading, but with attention to the definite article, the crisis. For the West, the phrase, the crisis, has a clear enough meaning. It's the financial crisis that hit the rich countries and therefore is of supreme importance. But in fact, even for the rich and privileged, that's by no means the only crisis or even the most severe of those they face, and others see the world quite differently. For example, the newspaper New Nation in Bangladesh. There we read, "It's very telling that trillions have already been spent to patch up leading world financial institutions, while out of the comparatively small sum of $12 billion pledged in Rome earlier this year to offset the food crisis, only $1 billion has been delivered. The hope that at least extreme poverty can be eradicated by the end of 2015, as stipulated in the UN's Millennium Development Goals, seems as unrealistic as ever, not due to lack of resources, but to a lack of true concern for the world's poor." They're talking about approximately 1 billion people facing starvation, severe malnutrition, even 30, 40 million of them in the richest country in the world. That's a real crisis, and it's getting much worse. In this morning's Financial Times, British business press, it's reported that the World Food Program just announced that they're cutting food aid and rations and also closing operations. The reason is that the donor countries have been cutting back funding because of the fiscal crunch, and they're slashing contributions. So there's a very close connection between the horrendous food crisis and poverty crisis and the significant but less significant fiscal crisis. They're ending up closing down operations in Rwanda and Uganda, Ethiopia, many others. They have to 20 to 25% cut in budget, and while food prices are rising and the financial crisis, the general economic crisis, is bringing unemployment and cutting back remittances. That's a major crisis. We might incidentally remember that when the British landed in what's now Bangladesh, they were stunned by its wealth and splendor, and didn't take long for it to be on its way to become the very symbol of misery, not by an act of God. Well, the fate of Bangladesh should remind us that the terrible food crisis is not just a result of Western lack of concern. In large part, it results from very definite and clear concerns of the global managers, namely for their own welfare. It's always well to keep in mind an astute observation by Adam Smith about policy formation in England. He recognized that what he called the principal architects of policy, in his day the merchants and manufacturers, make sure that their own interests are most peculiarly attended to, however grievous the impact on others, including the people of England, but far more so those who were subjected to what he called the savage injustice of the Europeans, and particularly in conquered India, his own prime concern. We can easily think of analogs today. His observation, in fact, is one of the few solid and enduring principles of international and domestic affairs, well, to keep in mind. And the food crisis is a case in point. It erupted first and most dramatically in Haiti in early 2008. Like Bangladesh, Haiti is a symbol of utter misery. And like Bangladesh, when the European explorers arrived, they were stunned because it was so remarkably rich in resources. Later it became the source of much of France's wealth.